Let's get started with our first story, and it's a wild one. Dricus du Plessis is in the middle of what might be one of the most extreme weight cuts we've seen all year ahead of UFC 319. The question is, should we be worried? Du Plessis isn't just quietly making weight, he's sending a very direct message to Khamzat Chimaev ahead of their massive middleweight title fight, vowing to break him when they finally meet inside the octagon. And as fight night draws closer, the South African champ is pushing his body to the absolute limit. In a recent interview with the Chicago Sports Network, du Plessis revealed something that raised a few eyebrows. He normally walks around at 225 to 230 pounds, and he still needs to make the middleweight limit of 85 pounds. That's a jaw-dropping drop of 40 to 45 pounds. And here's the part that really shocked people. He plans to shed all of it in the final 10 days before weigh-ins. Now, for anyone who's followed MMA long enough, you know that kind of cut isn't just physically brutal, it's mentally exhausting. But du Plessis insists there's nothing to panic about. According to him, this is simply the stage of fight camp where the grind gets real. The plan is to strip away the water weight, hit the scale, then reload and walk into the cage at full strength. Still, this cut isn't just about meeting a number on a scale. Du Plessis is determined to make a statement. In his mind, this fight is about history, about proving that the middleweight division only has room for one so-called boogeyman, and in his words, that's him. When the conversation shifted to the future, du Plessis didn't shy away from big plans. He admitted that moving up to light heavyweight is very much part of the long-term vision. In fact, he already has his eye on potential blockbuster matchups, mentioning that the winner of Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev would be one of the most exciting fights possible for him at 200. But before that can happen, there's business to take care of, and that business is named Khamzat Chimaev. And on that subject, du Plessis didn't mince words. He's a special fighter, incredibly good, but geez, I can't wait. This win for me, this is going to be history. I'm going out there to shock the world once again, just like every other time people said it was impossible. Not this guy, not against him. But I'm going to show you. You're going to see the boogeyman. You're going to watch him break. You're going to see him realize there's only one boogeyman, and that's me. In the middleweight division, there can be only one boogeyman, and it will be me. Whether you see this as confidence or calculated mind games, one thing is certain, du Plessis is stepping into UFC 319 with a chip on his shoulder and a point to prove. And with such an insane weight cut on top of the already massive stakes, this fight is shaping up to be one of the most fascinating storylines heading into fight week. Before moving to the next news, we have one quick request for you. We're constantly working on improving our content to earn your love and support. That's why we truly appreciate it if you could take just a moment to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Now shifting gears, we've got breaking news out of Brazil because UFC Rio finally has its main event locked in. Fan favorite Charles Oliveira is making a surprisingly fast turnaround as he's officially set to face striking sensation Rafael Fiziev on October 11th. For Oliveira, this isn't just another fight, it's a long-awaited homecoming. This will be the first time in more than 5 years that Du Bronx steps into the octagon on Brazilian soil. The announcement came directly from Oliveira himself via Instagram, and you could feel the wave of excitement from his supporters almost instantly. Comments flooded in from fans all over the country, with messages like "Welcome home, champ," and "The King returns to Brazil." But make no mistake, Oliveira is walking into this fight with a very different mindset than usual. That's because he's still reflecting on his recent loss to Ilia Topuria, a defeat that clearly stung but also taught him valuable lessons. And instead of making excuses or pointing fingers, Oliveira has taken full responsibility for the result. Speaking with Thunderpick, Oliveira explained exactly what went wrong in that fight, and his words showed nothing but humility. "Sometimes we try to prove something we don't need to prove. I trained so many different things for that fight. Calf kicks, 1-2s, takedown entries, combinations into high kicks, all of it. But when the fight started, I threw all that out the window. I just wanted to show off my hands. I believed too much in my knockout power. I kept waiting for that perfect shot, but he was way faster than me because I was just standing there waiting for that one punch." It was a rare moment of complete honesty from a fighter of Oliveira's caliber. He admitted that he allowed ego and overconfidence to dictate his approach, rather than sticking to the strategic plan that he and his team had spent weeks preparing. His game plan worked better, his timing was better, his punch landed before mine, It was his night, and he deserves all the respect in the world, Oliveira continued. Meanwhile, I was waiting for something I should never have waited for. What should I have done? I should have moved, but I didn't. I didn't do anything I trained for. I just stood in front of him and paid the price. For Oliveira, that price wasn't just a loss on his record, it was a harsh reminder that even the most experienced fighters can fall victim to the heat of the moment, but instead of letting it break him, he used it as motivation. That's why I went home, stayed close to my family, and went right back to training. There's still so much to prove, so much to do. Now with UFC Rio just around the corner, Oliveira has the chance to bounce back in front of his home crowd against a dangerous opponent in Rafael Fiziev. Known for his explosive striking and relentless pace, Fiziev presents a completely different challenge, one that will force Oliveira to stay disciplined and sharp. For the fans in Brazil, this fight is more than just a main event, it's a redemption story. And for Charles Oliveira, it's a chance to show that the lessons learned from his last setback will make him even more dangerous when the lights shine brightest. Meanwhile, Chael Sonnen is back in the headlines, and as always, he's not pulling any punches. This time, the former UFC title challenger is taking aim at one of the biggest upcoming bouts on the schedule, the rematch between Alex Pereira and Magomed Ankalaev at UFC. According to Chael, there's a major problem. Nobody actually wants to see this fight. And when he says nobody, he means nobody. Speaking with MMA Junkie, Chael launched into one of his classic rants. Nobody asked for this rematch. You didn't ask for it. I didn't ask for it. You couldn't go to Twitter, you couldn't go to Google, you couldn't even get Grok to show you one person who asked for this fight. Chael's point is simple. While both fighters are elite talents, the matchup doesn't exactly have fans buzzing. The first fight, in his view, didn't leave enough unresolved questions to warrant running it back so soon. But Sonnen didn't stop there. He also took the opportunity to once again push for something he's been talking about for months. Alex Pereira moving up to heavyweight. I still wish Alex would become a heavyweight, Chael said. There's not another fight at 205 that I want to see for him. He clearly wants to be a heavyweight. He's even putting that story out there on his own Instagram, posting pictures of himself on the scale at 246 pounds, sending the message, I'm big enough, I want to do this. Chael, never shy to mix blunt honesty with a bit of humor, questioned the UFC's decision-making here. But why do we have to get him beat twice? Why risk him taking another loss at light heavyweight when there's a whole new division waiting for him? For Chael, the logic is straightforward. Alex Pereira has already proven he can hang with the best at 205, and moving up to heavyweight would not only be a fresh challenge, but also create massive new matchups. Imagine Pereira in there with the likes of Tom Aspinall, Sergey Pavlovich, or even a returning John Jones. The intrigue, Chael argues, would be through the roof. From the UFC's perspective, though, the rematch makes sense in the best versus best tradition. Dana White himself has said, this is what we do here. Ankalaev has been one of the most consistent and technically sharp fighters in the division, and Pereira's explosive striking makes him dangerous for anyone. On paper, it's a clash of styles that could deliver high-level action. Still, Chael's criticism taps into a sentiment shared by some corners of the fan base, that the UFC sometimes prioritizes rankings and immediate rematches over creating fresh, exciting fights that fans didn't even know they wanted. And love him or hate him, Sonnen has a knack for voicing what a lot of people are thinking but aren't saying out loud. Whether you agree with him or not, his take has already sparked debates across MMA forums, podcasts, and social media. So while UFC 320's co-main may be locked in, the conversation around Alex Pereira's future is far from over. And if Chael gets his way, the next time we see Putin in the octagon, he'll be standing across from a heavyweight giant instead of another light heavyweight contender. Now, as for Khamzat Chimaev, the man still has his sights set on something that's never been done before in UFC history, becoming a triple champion. That's right, not double champ status, triple champ status. Speaking with ESPN MMA, Khamzat laid out his vision, and it's nothing short of insane. He's talking about possibly dropping back down to welterweight to face the winner of Jack Della Maddalena versus Islam Makhachev, or moving up to light heavyweight to take on the winner of Magomed Ankalaev versus Alex Pereira. It's the kind of ambition only Khamzat could deliver with a straight face. I'm working with my new coach, Coach Carl. Khamzat said, we talked about going back down to my first fights at 17. He said, give me a couple months and we'll make it. For anyone who remembers Khamzat's early UFC run, welterweight was where he made his name, walking through opponents with freakish strength, seemingly immune to the weight cut. But since moving up, many assumed 170 was off the table for him. Not so, according to the man himself. I don't even know who the champ is there right now. The Australian guy. Yeah, that would be a good fight for me. I could take that belt. Of course, the Australian guy he's referring to is Jack Della Maddalena, who's set to clash with Islam Makhachev in what's already one of the most intriguing champion versus champion matchups of the year. If Khamzat's prediction comes true, that winner could be staring across the octagon at one of the most physically dominant fighters the UFC has ever seen. But Khamzat's ambitions don't stop there. He's also got his eye on light heavyweight gold. And if I go up, and Kalev or Alex, whoever wins, I can fight for that belt too. That means in Khamzat's mind, the timeline could realistically look like this: defend or win middleweight gold, cut back to welterweight for another title, then pack on the pounds to challenge at 205. 3 belts, 3 divisions, a feat that would cement him as not just an all-time great, but maybe the most versatile and fearless champion the UFC has ever seen. Of course, talk is one thing. Making weight at 170 after years away from the division is another, and moving up to face a powerhouse like Alex Pereira or a technical assassin like Magomed Ankalaev is no easy leap. But this is Khamzat we're talking about, a guy who's made a career out of looking across the cage at supposedly impossible matchups and making them look easy. Whether or not he can actually pull it off remains to be seen, but one thing's certain: the man is not short on ambition, and with a new coach, a renewed training camp focus, and a track record of delivering when the lights are brightest, you'd be crazy to count him out. So while UFC 319 will settle the question of whether he's the true middleweight boogeyman killer, don't be surprised if the post-fight call-out isn't for 1 belt, but for 2 more. Next up, things are heating up between Belal Muhammad and Dricus du Plessis after some spicy back and forth. Earlier this week, du Plessis appeared on the Ariel Helwani show, and when the topic of Belal's welterweight title loss to Jack Della Maddalena came up, Dricus didn't hold back. He said, and I quote, "I was watching the fight just to see him lose." That was literally it. I think he's an absolute, well, let's just say I was really happy to see that. That tweet I made? Oh yeah, I had it typed out before the fight even started. All I had to do was hit copy and paste. Just go. Pretty savage, right? Well, Belal was not going to let that slide. He jumped on his YouTube channel and clapped back hard. I heard du Plessis is in Chicago. Bro, this is my city. We've got a big card next week, huge main event. And if you need anything, food, groceries, a therapist, a cage, a gym, a sauna, make sure you don't hit me up. You're not welcome here. Chicago, if you see him, let him know you don't like his kind. So yeah, this isn't just playful trash talk anymore. This is personal. And with both of these guys known for their relentless energy and unfiltered words, you have to wonder, are we looking at the start of a real grudge match? Because if so, this could be explosive. Moving on to another big headline, we now know there was some serious behind-the-scenes drama with Khamzat Chimaev's fight at UFC 319, and it nearly changed the card in a huge way. Recently, former double champion and current UFC commentator Daniel Cormier revealed the scoop on the Good Guy Bad Guy show. According to DC, there was a point just 2 months ago when Khamzat's fight with Dricus du Plessis was hanging by a thread. Cormier laid it out. 2 months ago, I got a call saying Khamzat was probably going to be out of this fight with du Plessis. We're a week out now, and obviously it's happening, but back then they were asking me who should fight du Plessis instead. Should it be that kid from France at 18.5 Imavov? Or should it be Baralo? But in the end, it was always going to be Khamzat. He was going to make that walk. Now think about that for a second. UFC 319 was built around the middleweight title fight between du Plessis and Chimaev, a matchup the promotion has been hyping for months. Had Khamzat pulled out, we could have seen Nassourdine Imavov or Caio Baralho step in as last-minute replacements. Both are dangerous, up-and-coming middleweights, but let's be honest, it would have been a completely different type of fight, and it definitely wouldn't have carried the same boogeyman versus boogeyman storyline that's made this bout so compelling. The fact that Khamzat's can't push through whatever issues had him on the brink of withdrawal speaks volumes. Whether it was injury, illness, or something else entirely, DC didn't get into specifics. The important thing is that Chimaev stayed the course, and now, just days away from fight night, the matchup we've all been waiting for is locked in. This revelation also adds another layer to the mental warfare heading into UFC 319. Du Plessis has been cutting an insane amount of weight, openly vowing to break Khamzat, and now we know there was a point where Chimaev's participation was genuinely in doubt. You can bet Du Plessis heard about this too, and you can bet he's using it as fuel. On the flip side, for Khamzat, it's one more reason to prove a point. Fighters hate having their commitment questioned, and if DC's story is true, Khamzat might walk into the cage with something extra to prove, not just to Du Plessis, but to the fans. From massive weight cuts, to rematch controversies, to heated trash talk that spilled over into multiple divisions, UFC 319 is shaping up to be absolutely electric. These aren't just surface-level headlines, they're the kinds of stories that keep MMA fans glued to their screens, following every Instagram post, every interview, every cryptic tweet. And what's interesting is that the ripple effects go far beyond just one fight. If Du Plessis wins, he cements himself as the undisputed middleweight king and maybe even earns a shot at light heavyweight glory. If Khamzat wins, his dream of becoming a triple champion stays alive, and with his name in the mix for welterweight and light heavyweight, the possibilities for 2025 are endless. But before we start fantasy booking what comes next, we've got to get through this fight. A fight that, according to Daniel Cormier, almost never happened. Now it's here. The stakes couldn't be higher, and both men are walking in with pressure, pride, and personal grudges on the line. One thing's for sure, when the cage door closes at UFC 319, history won't just be made, it will be earned.